before we go on to the next non-harmonic tone, there's one more thing that you need to know about suspensions when you're identifying them. You take a look back at this example. Okay. We said that C is a non-harmonic tone, but it resolves down to B, and therefore is a suspension because it's happening on the chord change. Now, because B is the third of the chord, then we would call this a 4-3 suspension. Okay, so I'll say that one more time. This is a G chord, G, B, D. B is a third of a chord, so we would call this a 4-3 suspension because it's moving from 4 down to the third scale degree. Now, if it went from E to D, for example, that's still a suspension because the notes we need are G, B, and D. D is the chord tone, E is a non-harmonic tone, and E is resolving down to D in the same manner, so it's still a suspension. Now, in this case, D is the fifth of a chord, so we would call this a 6-5 suspension because it's moving from the sixth down to the fifth. Okay. Now, there's one more. And that would simply be if it went from A down to G. In this case, G is of course the tonic, so it's the 1. This would be a 2-1 suspension. You could also call 2-1 a 9-8 suspension because it's the same notes. Okay. So I know this can be a little bit tricky, but it all has to do with the chord tone that it's resolving to. That's how you can name it. Do a little practice with this, and then we'll talk about the next non-harmonic tone in the next lesson.